I'm Judy Cox, and I've just been awarded my PhD from Leeds University, and it's on the study of women in the Chartist movement in the mid-19th century, which I think is an underdeveloped area of history. Women were central to the Chartist movement, the greatest movement for democracy in the 19th century, but there's only been one book that was dedicated to women in Chartism, and that was written in 1993. So there's been very little contemporary research about the role that women played and how they asserted themselves as quite bold activists within Chartism. There is an idea that women were marginalised inside of the Chartist movement and were treated as glorious auxiliaries, but I found a much bolder and more assertive tradition supported by some male Chartists, but not all, and many of the women Chartists. E.P. Thompson was a fantastic historian in many ways, but what I most value him for is that pioneering approach which looked beyond just wages and conditions and trade union density and tried to recapture the experience of the poor and the marginal and the dispossessed. Because it seems to me when you look at women's history, you're not going to capture it and retrieve those women just looking at the official structures of the movement. You have to see from the grassroots up how women socialised, how they spoke at meetings, how they wrote for the Chartist press, and how they tried to establish an assertive presence within Chartism.
E.P. Thompson has had critics that he is not he didn't, within his work, making of the English working class, considered the role of women. Mm-hmm. You've just spoken in defence of him in some respects.
I think I would defend him. I think some of the critiques are ahistorical because they take the perspective of the later 1970s and 80s where feminism and gender history was quite developed, and criticise E.P. Thompson for not having reproduced this earlier. I think like mass movements encourage people to change their approaches. The women's liberation movement did it, the gay liberation movement did it, the Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movement encourage us to see history in a different way. So I don't think you can blame historians who came before those movements for not taking into account the debates that they have generated. But I think E.P. Thompson was always on the side of the marginalised and the dispossessed. So yes, we could say he could have written more about women and their particular and unique experience, but he created a framework which was an inclusive one, which wasn't just about what happens at the point of production, but was about the whole experience of being a working class person, living in a community, living in a family, perhaps working in a workplace, but sharing all sorts of beliefs, ideas and organisations.